It's time for the Writer's Block, our weekly look at sports. I'm Jenni Carlson here in the studios of the Oklahoman, joined by Cedric Golden in the studios of the Austin American-Statesman. Hello.
What's up, Jen? How are you today?
I'm doing well. I'm getting ready for a big Sunday of football, some basketball action, but lots to talk about. But let's start with that big Sunday. Cedric, we talked last week about the great weekend that is the divisional semifinals in the NFL playoffs. 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday. Boy, they did not disappoint. I felt like they were excellent games from front to back. What'd you think?
I thought so too, and I don't know. Maybe it was you that said it. It's your favorite NFL weekend.
Yep.
Because she got the cream of the crop.
Yep.
The final 8, if you will. And I just thought that the Kansas City Houston game. I was over at Kirk Bowles' house. Yeah, I know I'm name dropping, but
no.
I was actually allowed into his home, and we were all just bugging that Houston was up 24-0. And as soon as Kansas City scored, my colleague Danny Davis goes, Kansas City's going to be leading at halftime. He said that.
Wow.
He saw the avalanche coming, and when it came, it didn't stop. That's almost as bad as blowing the 35-3 lead at Buffalo.
Yeah.
Not quite, but pretty bad.
Yeah, that was a remarkable game on Sunday. I was glued to it. I was shocked the night before when Tennessee beat Baltimore in Baltimore, that Ravens team that was so good during the regular season. But Cedric, it sets up now the divisional finals, which will be both on Sunday. So not a 2-day marathon. That's why I like the divisional semifinals, because you get 2 days of football instead of 1 day of football. But these are the best of the best, and they really do promise to be great games. Sunday, starting with those Titans and the Chiefs, who we've talked about already for their great wins last weekend, followed by the Packers and the Niners, a couple of the traditional powers in the NFL in that evening matchup. You know, this is for the Super Bowl, friend. What do you think about the home teams? We talked last week about how hard it is to go on the road, especially when those home teams were, playing after byes. Can the home teams win these 2 games? Can it be Kansas City and the Niners in the Super Bowl?
Absolutely. And the one thing that if I'm more worried about Derrick Henry if I'm Kansas City than San Francisco is worried about Aaron Rodgers. Did you hear what I just said there?
I did.
That's a statement. I'm telling you, the one thing about Derrick Henry, and we grew up watching NFL in this part of the country, that's old school football.
Yeah.
We got a battering ram running back, and you're going to have to deal with him if you're going to win this game. And our colleague, Clarence Hill of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram had a great tweet. He said, if Earl Campbell and Eric Dickerson had a baby, it would be Derrick Henry. He's 6'3", he runs upright, and he will run your butt over just as soon as look at you. He is the most fun big running back we've seen in years. And Ryan Tannehill's yet to throw for 100 yards in a playoff game. You want to hear a really bad stat if you're a Cowboy fan, Jen? Mike Vrabel has won just as many playoff games in 2 weeks as Jason Garrett did in 9 seasons.
Whew, man, yeah, that hits you hard if you're a Dallas Cowboys fan. But you're right. I mean, Cedric, it is remarkable to see. We've seen the evolution of these running quarterbacks. We've talked about it before, the Lamar Jacksons, Deshaun Watson. Obviously, Russell Wilson's been at it for a while now. But to have that running game be so successful, I mean, when the Titans won their first playoff game, the wild card game, I think people were shocked and thought, well, that was nice, but that's got to be it. Here they are playing for a shot to go to the Super Bowl. Unbelievable. And there's a lot of talk about passing, obviously, in the NFL as the air raid effects have sort of carried over to the NFL. But I heard something during the playoffs that was a little bit surprising, at least to me. If you look at the top passing teams in the regular season, I think it was the top 4 passing teams in the NFL did not make the playoffs. The top 4 rushing teams in the NFL did, and that includes the Titans, said. So you're talking about something that, when it comes to weather, when it comes to all the different factors that come in, Titans can control that. So that's going to be a really interesting differing of styles offensively. Obviously, Pat Mahomes and all that they do in Kansas City, with Tennessee coming in with Derrick Henry. So who wins that chess match? But I think every bit as interesting is what we see Green Bay, San Francisco, old guard Aaron Rodgers and new guard Jimmy Garoppolo. But the Niners said they have a great defense. Who wins that one? That's the primetime matchup. Who wins that?
Well, the Niners killed them 37-8 in the regular season, and I think they're going to beat them again by double digits. And the reason is they have the luxury, Jen, of rushing four and getting big pressure on the quarterback. That front four is as good a front four as we've seen in 3 or 4 years in this league. Aaron Rodgers is fleet of foot, even at his advanced age. He's going to be up against it, trying to find throwing lanes for Devontae Adams and company. I really don't think they're going to be able to block the 49ers. And if they can't block the 49ers, Rodgers not going to have time to operate. Yeah. Aaron Jones is a terrific young running back. Should get some MVP votes, but he won't. But I'm telling you, I just think that the 49ers at the house, Jen, with that front four, they're going to be able to get out of the house with a dub, and they're going to be in the Super Bowl for the first time in quite a while.
Hey, they had 2 wins a year ago. San Francisco, unbelievable turnaround. I didn't think beginning of the year, I never would have thought that they were going to be having this kind of season. But I'm with you, Sed. I think the Niners win. I think the Chiefs win. I think it sets up a great Super Bowl. But again, Sunday, great day of NFL games. So a lot of eyes will be on that. As we talk about what's still left in the NFL, we've got to rewind on what we saw earlier this week in the college game. We got a national champion. It is LSU. Cedric, we talked a lot about the playoffs, the last couple weeks, the magnitude of these matchups. We thought we'd see a good one in the national championship game, and it was a pretty quality game. Now, LSU kind of built that lead and ran away and hid a little bit late in the game, but this was the type of game we expected. Was there any surprise in your mind with what you saw LSU Clemson on Monday night?
Yeah, I was a little surprised that Trevor Lawrence just never settled in. Jen, he was airmailing a lot of throws. Yeah. Something that we haven't seen from him since he's been a college quarterback, and just not able to sustain drives when it mattered most. When they fell behind there in the third quarter, that effectively took ATN, the fine running back, out of the game, and it put it on the shoulders of Trevor Lawrence, who just wasn't accurate. Yeah. Joe Burrow was as good as advertised. Jen, he's been the best player from the first game to the last game. Yeah. And that is an all-time great season by LSU. The question is, can Coach O keep it going with stars like Edwards-Helaire, the running back, leaving, Grant Delpit leaving, guys like that, and, of course, the Heisman Trophy winner, Joe Burrow, leaving. You want to hear what's going to be really rough for Joe Burrow? He's going from Bayou Bengal to Cincinnati Bengal. Enjoy the party while it lasts, young man. It's about to get tough.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, I think people in Cincinnati are ready to welcome Joe Burrow for good reason. I mean, right out of the gate on that national championship game, the first pass he throws of the game ends up being a no play because they had an illegal man downfield. But it was the type of throw, it was the type of moving in the pocket that, to me, if you're the Cincinnati Bengals, you put that play on and you say, tell me why we shouldn't draft this guy. I mean,
he's a Bengal.
Deep in his own end zone, could have gotten sacked, could have got a safety. I mean, Clemson could have almost scored before the game really gets started. So a gutsy play, but then an accurate play. Yeah, it's going to be hard for the Bengals to walk away from drafting Joe Burrow. I don't think they're going to. I think they're going to pick Joe Burrow and try to rebuild on his shoulders. They're good shoulders to build on. But, it was a historic season by Burrow. It was a fantastic season by LSU. And, Cedric, I think you're right. I think a lot of people are debating, was this potentially the greatest season in college football history? I mean, you saw the great Texas Longhorn team led by Vince Young. I've seen some great teams here in Oklahoma, but how does this one stack up? I mean, they went undefeated through the SEC and then just double-digit wins in the playoffs. That's the type of thing that if you're saying best ever, that holds some water right there.
It does for me, and having covered the Longhorns during the Vince Young 30-2 era, very similar. There are like 30. Texas had like 30 guys from those two teams that ended up in the league. I mean, that's just an unbelievable amount of NFL talent. Guys like Brian Orakpo. Brian Orakpo was the third string defensive end on that team, and he's just played 12 years in the NFL. So there are just some wonderful, wonderful players from that era. Texas averaged 50 points a game that year, and they were just magnificent. And Vince Young, as it turns out, was the best player in America, even though he didn't get the Heisman. So a lot of similarities, a lot of parallels. I just love the star power on both teams. Now, speaking of star power, before we get out of here, we got to talk about Odell Beckham.
Oh, man.
On the sideline handing out cash. Come on. What's he doing, Jen?
Well, and that was an interesting, obviously a few days after, side note, as video surfaces, picture surface of the LSU alum looking to hand out dollar bills. Now, for a while, maybe a day or so, there was talk that, well, it's just fake. It was just monopoly money. But Cedric, now LSU is saying he may have handed out actual cash. Yeah, no kidding. What's going on here, my friend?
Just a dummy. And Joe Burrow went on a podcast and said it was real money.
Yeah.
It was real money. You know what, though? And for people out there that think, oh, Odell's trying to hook the players up. No, put down the pipe. He's not. This is what this was about, Jen. Odell Beckham hasn't been relevant since his next to last season with the New York Giants when they were halfway decent. His last season was injury marred, and then the year after that, his first year with Cleveland was a wash. He hasn't been relevant. If you really, really wanted to hook up your fellow Bayou Bengals, you would have waited until the reporters cleared out, until the coaches cleared out, and then just told somebody, hey, go get Joe Burrow, go get Jefferson, go get Chase, go get Edwards-Helaire. And then meet me in the locker room. Hey, here's a little something for you. No cameras. He did it because he wanted the attention. He's a narcissist. He's an egotist. He did it for all the wrong reasons. And I hope the players don't suffer for this. Yeah. And I hope LSU doesn't suffer. It's not their fault.
Yeah, it really did feel very publicity stunty, which it seemed to be surrounded by the cameras. If you give something to guys who are done with their eligibility, which obviously once that game was over, a guy like Joe Burrow is no longer under those amateur rules that the NCAA has at its disposal. So that's a little bit different. But still, even if you're just handing out money to guys who no longer have eligibility remaining, it just is not a good look, and it's not a good look for him. I mean, you're right, Cedric. LSU, I mean, you can't control the actions of your alums. You would hope that they would be smarter than that, but pretty clearly that may not be Odell's strong suit, is discerning what to do and what not to do. But it's unfortunate, Ted, because it really does sort of detract from this fantastic season that LSU had. And that's the part when you're LSU, you say, hey, we've got these notable guys out in the league, obviously a lot of them in the NFL, and they carry that LSU brand, so you want to have that benefit. But stuff like this, instead of, people debating, was this the best season ever in college football? Instead, there's some time diverted to what's going on with Odell Beckham? Did he give money to guys that he shouldn't have? Is it an NCAA infraction? To me, it takes some of that spotlight, again, what you said, off the guys on the field and puts it right back on a guy who hasn't played in a championship level game in a really long time.
Exactly. And guess what? Instead of talking about Joe Burrow and the great season that LSU had, Coach O, we're talking about Odell Beckham, and that's exactly what he wants.
Yeah. Yeah, crazy stuff. All right. Well, hey, we've talked football, and the last few weeks we've talked a ton of football because of the time of year we're in. But lo and behold, Major League Baseball has crept into our lives. And Cedric, it's a crazy story because Major League Baseball announced earlier this week that it was levying 1-year suspensions for Houston Astros general manager and manager. Then almost exactly at the same time, Houston fires both. Now we've seen the Red Sox fire their manager, all related to cheating, sign stealing that the Houston Astros have been doing for several years, and now it sounds like could be sort of filtering out to some other guys in some other places. But obviously the big bombshell relating to the Astros, their 2017 World Series championship, that year is right in the middle of all of this. This is really a mess, and Major League Baseball, they kind of went as far as they could under the rules they have, $5 million fine for the Astros. But really the magnitude of all this, it may not even, there may not be enough that they can do, Major League Baseball can do, to make up for the severity of this whole thing.
Exactly. And the one thing that I take from all of it is the owner. I just think that Jim Crane got away with something. He got off easy. We noticed in the literature that the MLB sent out, they put it way up early in the report that he had no knowledge of this, blah, blah, blah. They wanted to exonerate him for some reason. And to me, if you own a $2 billion company and you don't know what's going on in that company, then you're not doing as good a job as you could be doing. I'll put it like this. In my household, I grew up with mom, dad, and a sister. And if I had a problem and my sister had a problem, even if we didn't tell our parents, they could pick up on it. So I think that Mr. Crane got off really easily. $5 million fine, Jen. That team is worth $2 billion. So a $5 million fine is 0.25%. So that's like me and you getting fined $500. Oh, it hurts, but we can come up with that money and we'll be eating next week. So
yeah,
I wasn't that impressed with how he handled it. Of course, he was going to do the right thing and fire the two guys that are running the show.
Right.
But at the end of the day, Jen, after losing those draft picks, you still got Altuve, Correa, and Springer and Bregman. You still got those studs on your team, and you're still going to be competing for championships.
Right.
And most important, you still have that 2017 World Series trophy, even though if it is a bit tainted. The question I have for you, Jen, is in 30 years, will anybody even care about the Astros stealing signs in 2017? I'm going to say no.
Yeah, I saw some stuff in the aftermath of what happened earlier this week. Some people talking about the 1919 Black Sox and bringing that into the conversation. I don't know that it rises to that level. So if it does, I mean, if baseball people really see it that way, maybe you do have a memory of the sign stealing. And who knows? Like I said, there may be more shoes to drop. We saw Alex Cora get fired. There's talk about Beltran in New York. Might he be fired as part of this whole thing, as teams are worried that sanctions against those guys could leave them out of the game for a while? I don't know. I don't know how the fallout is going to be long term, because I think we're still seeing this develop. The Astros, that part of the story may well sort of be shaking down after the bombshells of earlier this week. But I think you're right, Cedric. I think as it relates to the Astros, I think, they are going to continue. They've got great players. They're going to go out and get a new general manager, going to go out and get a new manager, and they'll continue to win. Maybe not to that level, I don't know, but they're going to continue to be successful. The question is, can baseball get this stopped? Is the severity of what they're doing going to convince other teams, players, front office, whomever is involved in potentially similar types of activities, is going to convince them to stop? I do think A.J. Hinch, the manager for the Astros, who has been credited for a lot of their success, seemed to me, Cedric, he's a guy from here in the Oklahoma City area, played high school ball in one of the suburbs of Oklahoma City before he left for Stanford and then Major League ball. But his statement to this point, he took blame for not doing more. He did apologize. I feel like he'll get back into baseball. Somebody will hire A.J. Hinch down the line. But, I think this it sort of remains to be seen. Is this a situation where guys get back in? Cedric, we've seen other instances, involving other things where guys don't get back in. I think this is a situation where these guys get another chance, but it's going to be interesting. I think the Astros themselves are going to move forward. Now it's going to be more on an individual basis. How does this affect those guys who have those bans on them, and how long do they have to stay out of the game?
Yeah, and I agree with you. They will get back in. If Barry Bonds and Mark McGwire can get back in as coaches, then you'll see A.J. Hinch again. And it's baseball, and if they're not cheating, they're probably not trying. And we lived through the steroid era, and we've lived through the sign stealing era. There are going to be other scandals. The game has always been awash in scandal. That's what makes it one of the most intriguing sports out there. Pete Rose gambling, Willie Mantle associated with gamblers, a Black Sox scandal. There's always been something with baseball. That's the problem the game faces, though. It's so much more exciting with the scandals off the field in those 4-hour games, watching guys adjust themselves. That gets old after a while, Jen.
I was going to say, I think people are more excited in the off season with all this news than they are once the games actually start. So we'll see. Pitchers and catchers, I'm sure they report in about the next 5 minutes because it's that time of year, and it doesn't take long after the World Series is over before that starts again. It will be interesting to follow, though. What are those ripples as baseball gets going again, and we see those guys back out there, and maybe more in the way of suspensions, fines, remains to be seen, but something we'll be following. We'll be talking about if it comes up again. Who knows, Cedric? Maybe there'll be more scandal in more leagues next week. Let's see what happens, and we'll talk about it next week on the Writer's Block. Be sure to join us then.